He vanished when he was 7. No witnesses. No goodbye. Just silence. For 11 years, the world forgot him until one rainy night. He knocked on the door of his childhood home. But the boy who returned wasn't the same one who left. What happened to him will leave you speechless. Before we dive in, notice that we're a brand new channel sharing true, emotional, and unforgettable stories like this one. So if you enjoy powerful storytelling, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Now let's begin. It was almost midnight in Asheville, North Carolina, and the rain hadn't let up for hours. This wasn't some gentle movie-style rain that taps softly on windows. This was cold, relentless rain, blurring the streetlights into gold streaks and washing the city in shades of gray. You could smell the soaked pavement, that sharp, earthy scent of wet stone and memory, and hear the tires of passing cars cutting through puddles like ghosts on a schedule. Most of Kenilworth was asleep. The old neighborhood, with its cozy brick homes and towering oak trees, looked like a postcard of quiet southern life. But something felt different that night. Something had shifted. The streetlights outside 2115 Elmridge Drive flickered twice, just enough to glitch the security camera on the porch. It skipped exactly 13 seconds. Just enough time for someone to walk up unseen. That someone stood dripping wet in front of the Ellison house. No coat, just a faded hoodie soaked through, clinging to a lean frame. His hood was pulled up, shadowing his face. His hands shook as he gripped the straps of a small, battered backpack. The house hadn't changed much. The paint was more faded, once a bright blue, now dull and tired under the porch light. The wind chimes by the window, shaped like little brass moons, clinked weakly in the storm. The boy didn't move. He didn't knock. He just stared, like he was waiting for the house to speak first. Inside, a woman stirred. Hannah Ellison hadn't truly slept in 11 years. Not since the day her son vanished. Her eyes opened automatically, wired to a current that never fully shut off. She sat up slowly, unsure what had woken her. Just a feeling, a weight in her chest that never left since June 22nd, 2014, the day Jacob disappeared. She reached for the water glass beside her bed. It was empty. Outside, the boy finally raised his hand and knocked 3 times. The door creaked open just a little, stopped by the chain lock. Hannah peeked through the gap, her face pale, strands of graying brown hair hanging loose. She almost didn't see him at first, but when she did, something inside her gave out. The air, the blood, 11 years of waiting, all crashing at once. Then he spoke 6 words, 6 words that broke the silence of a decade. "I think this used to be mine." And she fainted. 10 hours earlier, that same boy, no name, no ID, no answers, had walked into a gas station 40 miles away in a small mountain town called Brevard. The cashier, a teenage girl in a hoodie that read "Nothing Matters," later told police she barely looked up. He just stood there, silent, eyes flicking around. No wallet, no ID, only a name, scribbled inside his backpack, Caleb M. When she asked if he needed help, he said one thing: "How far is Asheville?" Then he left, back into the rain. Now, the Ellison house was quiet again, just the low hum of the fridge and the creaking of old wood. Hannah lay on the couch, a cold cloth on her forehead, breathing unevenly. The boy sat across from her in an old armchair, wearing dry pajamas that once belonged to her ex-husband. Neither of them said much, but the silence wasn't awkward. It was heavy, like 2 people carrying the same unspeakable truth. Finally, Hannah whispered, "What's your name?" He hesitated. "I don't know." She blinked back tears. "How did you get here?" "I walked." "From where?" "I'm not sure." Every answer felt like a blade made of fog. You could feel the pain, but nothing was clear. She kept staring at his face, over and over. Could it be? After 11 years? Was it really him? "Jacob," she asked. He didn't reply, but his eyes flickered. A clock ticked loudly from somewhere inside the house. Then, the sound of keys at the front door. Hannah sat up, heart racing. Tom, her ex-husband, still had a key. She had called him right after, or maybe she didn't. Maybe he just knew. The door opened. Tom Ellison hadn't aged well. He looked heavier, hair thinning, still wearing that same leather jacket from the day they reported Jacob missing. When he saw the boy, he didn't speak, just stared. Then, with a cracking voice, he whispered, "Jake." The boy looked at him, confused, like trying to remember someone from a dream. "Do you know me?" Tom asked. The boy looked down at his hands, then at the fireplace, then back at Tom. "You built me a tree house." Tom froze. Hannah gasped, "You remember that?" The boy nodded. It had a green flag and a broken ladder. The floodgates burst. Tom dropped to his knees. Hannah covered her mouth with shaking hands. "You're home. My God, you're home." But as the boy looked around the room, the pictures, the rug, the traces of childhood, his expression changed. He seemed unsure, like a part of him wanted to believe this, but another part didn't. Then he said something no one expected. There was another woman. Hannah went pale again. "What woman?" He swallowed hard. "She told me I wasn't supposed to come back." He didn't like mirrors. That's the first thing Hannah noticed the next morning. The way he avoided his reflection, as if afraid of who might look back. Jacob, or the boy they believed was Jacob, sat quietly at the kitchen table. Morning sunlight slipped through the blinds, drawing long shadows across the floor. Dust floated in the beams like frozen snow. He hadn't said much, just sat there, spinning a spoon in his cereal bowl. Hannah kept herself busy with pointless chores, wiping clean counters, rearranging things, while secretly watching him. How could she not? He looked so much like Tom. The same nose, the same stubborn jawline. But his eyes, they were different, older, worn, like they'd seen too much. He was only 18, but those eyes looked 40. "You sleep okay?" she asked. He nodded. "You want anything else?" He shook his head. "Do you remember anything else? About where you were?" He paused. "There was a red truck," he said. "I remember the engine was loud." "A truck?" Hannah asked. He nodded. And a woman's voice. She used to sing to me. Not lullabies, older songs. Her voice was rough. I think she smoked. "Do you remember her name?" He didn't answer. "What about yours?" she asked again, more gently this time. "Do you remember what she called you?" He kept stirring his cereal, the spoon spinning slowly. Then finally, "Caleb." He said it like a question, not an answer. "She called me Caleb sometimes. Other times, just kid. Or boy. Or nothing at all." Hannah's breath caught. She wanted to hold him, to tell him he was safe now, that it was over, but she knew deep down it wasn't. 11 years earlier, Jacob Ellison had been the kind of kid who talked to spiders. Not because he was weird, though other kids sometimes thought so, but because he believed everything deserved a name, a voice, a place in the story. The spider on the windowsill was named Raymond. The squirrel in the yard? Captain Fluff. He was a quiet kid. Not shy, just observant. The kind of child who could watch a thunderstorm roll in for an hour without blinking, just to see how the clouds folded into each other. His favorite toy was a plastic camera. Not real, just a Fisher-Price one. But he treated it like it mattered. He documented everything. Ants, tree bark, clouds, his mom dancing in the kitchen. "You're going to be a filmmaker," Tom used to tell him. "Or a spy," Hannah would joke. "Or a storm chaser," Jacob would shout. He had dreams, not grand ones, but warm ones, simple ones. To be seen, to be safe. On the day he vanished, June 22nd, 2014, it was hot, that kind of sticky Carolina heat, where even the air feels heavy. Tom was building shelves in the garage. Hannah was on a call with the school board. Jacob asked if he could go to the treehouse. "Just for a little bit," he'd said. That was the last time they saw him. When Tom went to check 20 minutes later, the backyard was empty. No Jacob. No Captain Fluff. No broken ladder. Just a green flag on the treehouse, fluttering in the wind. Now, in the present, Jacob stood by the kitchen window, staring out at the backyard. The flag was gone. So was the treehouse. "Do you remember this?" Hannah asked quietly, joining him. He stared for a long moment. "Yes," he whispered, "but it feels like someone else's memory. Tom returned that afternoon. He hadn't slept either. After the shock wore off, he'd spent the night driving aimlessly through old streets he hadn't visited since the divorce, trying to piece everything together. A DNA test would be done, but he didn't need it. The moment he saw the boy, he knew, "He's mine," Tom said when he walked in. "He doesn't remember much," Hannah told him. "Doesn't matter. We do." They both watched Jacob from the doorway. He was in the backyard again, walking slowly along the fence. Every few steps, he'd stop, like he was listening for something or trying to find a memory buried in the dirt. He talks in fragments, Hannah said, like he's afraid to say too much. "That's trauma," Tom replied. "He's protecting himself." From who? Tom didn't answer, but they were both thinking the same thing. Whoever took him might still be out there. Jacob came back inside, holding something. A small, rusted toy soldier. "Was this mine?" he asked. Tom squinted. "Yeah, you used to bury them." Said they were on underground missions. "I dug this one up. It was next to a spoon." "You remember burying it?" "No," he said, "but my hands did." Later that night, Jacob found an old photo album, forgotten under the coffee table. He flipped through it slowly. There he was, grinning on a tire swing, eating corn on the cob at the 4th of July fair, sitting on Hannah's lap, pointing at the camera. The boy in those photos looked happy, free. Oh, Jacob didn't feel like that boy anymore. But something stirred inside him as he looked. "That was your 5th birthday," Hannah said softly behind him. "You cried because we ran out of balloons." He didn't say anything, but his fingers trembled slightly. He closed the album. "I need to sleep." "Of course," Hannah said. "Your room's just—" "No," he looked at her. "Not there." She nodded quickly, her heart breaking a little. "You can sleep wherever you want." He chose the couch. But he didn't sleep. He just lay there, staring at the ceiling all night, counting the grooves in the plaster. The next morning, Detective Nora Hayes knocked on the door. She'd been retired for 4 years, but when she heard the rumors, she came. Hannah opened the door, unsure. "Nora, I just want to see him." "He's resting." "Please." Tom stepped in. "He remembers the treehouse." Nora's eyes welled up. "Can I talk to him?" They hesitated, then nodded. She stepped inside slowly, like entering a church. Jacob was at the table again, hands wrapped around a mug of warm milk. He looked up and froze. "So, did she? Do you know me?" Nora asked. His voice was soft. "You had a notebook, blue cover. You always carried it." She blinked. Yes, I did." "You cried once in the yard." "What? How do you—" "I saw it. Through the window." Nora sat across from him. "Do you remember what happened?" He was quiet. Then, "I heard voices. I thought they were arguing. I left the treehouse. I walked to the side gate. It was open. There was a—" "The red truck?" she asked. He nodded. "Did someone pull you in?" He shook his head. "No. They told me." "Who did?" "The woman. She said my mom told her I had to go away for a while." Hannah gasped from the doorway. "What?" Jacob looked confused. "That's what she said. That you told her I had to go." Nora turned to Hannah. "Do you know anything about this?" "No. God, no." Jacob looked between them. "That's not true." "Of course not," Hannah said, her voice cracking. "Jacob, I would never." He stood up. "I need air." He stepped out barefoot into the yard. The rain had stopped, but the air still smelled of wet pine and old memories. Tom and Hannah watched him go, and for the first time they wondered, what if he wasn't just a victim? What if he knew more than he was saying? It started with a drawer. 3 nights after Jacob came back, Hannah walked past the hallway cabinet, the one no one had touched in years, and noticed it was slightly open. Inside was a box of long-forgotten things buried by grief. Jacob's old-school drawings, his little blue baseball cap, a cracked pair of star-shaped sunglasses, and at the bottom, a note, a child's handwriting. She pulled it out, heart racing. The paper was aged, the edges yellowed. The ink had faded, but the message was clear. "If I leave, I'll come back. Don't cry, Mommy." I'll come back when I remember how. Her hands shook. She didn't remember him writing that, but the handwriting was his. The curve the little sun doodle in the corner. Tom, she called. He came quickly, sensing something was wrong. She handed him the note. He read it twice, then looked up. This wasn't here before. No, you're sure? Tom, I packed this drawer myself a year after he disappeared. I've opened it 100 times since. So, someone put this here recently. They looked at each other, then down the hallway, just as Jacob stepped out of the guest room. His face was blank, his eyes empty. Jacob stopped when he saw them holding the note. What's that? He asked. Do you remember this? Hannah said gently. Jacob looked at the paper. Then he said something that sent chills down their spines. She told me to hide it. Who? Tom asked. The woman. She said it would make you feel better. You mean Claire? Tom asked. Jacob flinched at the name. That's what she called herself, yeah. So Claire gave you this note? No. I wrote it, but she told me what to write. The next morning, Detective Nora Hayes returned. She brought boxes, old case files, photos, interview transcripts, maps covered in highlighter lines. Her badge was gone, but the fire inside her hadn't faded. She sat with Jacob at the kitchen table while Hannah and Tom stood nearby, watching anxiously. You said the woman's name was Claire Noran. Nora said, Do you remember where you lived with her? Jacob shook his head. It was a house, but the windows were always covered with thick curtains. The walls smelled like oil. Oil? Like gasoline. He nodded slightly. Did you go to school? Have friends? No school. No other kids. Did she ever take you to a doctor? He paused. Once, when I had a fever. She said if I talked too much, they'd take me away. Did she hurt you? Another pause. Then, only when I asked about my real name. Nora leaned in closer, her voice soft. Do you remember anything else? Any details? Landmarks? Jacob rubbed his fingers together, a nervous habit. There was a room, always locked. She said it's where the past lived. What was inside? I never saw, but I heard things, metal sounds like machines. Sometimes music. Old stuff. Sinatra, I think. Do you think you could find the house again? I'm not sure. If we drove around, do you think anything would look familiar? He hesitated. Maybe. That afternoon, they set out. Tom drove. Jacob sat in the passenger seat. Nora rode in the back, quietly watching every change in his expression. They drove through Brevard, down side roads and winding mountain trails, past houses with peeling paint and American flags, long driveways swallowed by trees. At one curve in the road, Jacob tensed. Here. Tom slowed down. This house. Jacob shook his head. Not this one. But I remember this bend. We always turned right here. Then another left. Tom followed the directions. They passed a row of burned-out cabins, an old shed with a pink plastic flamingo in the yard, then up a narrow dirt path hidden by overgrown vines. A house appeared. 2 stories, faded white siding, windows completely blacked out. It looked abandoned now. But Jacob stopped cold. This was it. You're sure? Nora asked, leaning forward. He pointed at a second-floor window. That was my room. They stepped out. The smell hit them immediately, mildew, old dust, and something sharper, sour, metallic. The front door was padlocked, but Nora found a broken window on the side. Stay here, she told Jacob. No, I need to see it. Tom looked at him, then nodded. We'll go together. They climbed through the window. The inside was hollow and quiet in a way that screamed. Rotting curtains hung limp. An old recliner sagged in the corner. Dust covered everything like snow from some forgotten war. Jacob led them to the back. Here, a small door, padlocked. Nora took out a flashlight. With practiced fingers, she picked the lock. The door groaned open, revealing stairs that led down into a dark basement. The air smelled of copper. They descended slowly. What they found broke something in all of them. Rows of boxes, labeled in neat handwriting. J Year 1, J Year 3, photos, notes, recordings, and on one shelf, a box labeled Return. Inside, a map of Asheville, a list of dates, a set of keys. Jacob's face went pale. She planned to bring me back. Nora opened a box marked Year 1. Inside were hundreds of drawings, all by Jacob. Crayon, paint paper. He picked one up. It showed a treehouse with a green flag. Tears filled his eyes. I don't remember drawing these. Nora turned on an old tape recorder from the box labeled Notes. A woman's voice crackled through the static. Claire's voice. He keeps asking. He says he remembers the tree. I tell him it's just a dream, but I think he knows more than he lets on. Tom sat down slowly, overwhelmed. What the hell is this place? Nora whispered. An archive. She kept everything. Jacob was shaking. Why? Nora looked around. Because she was preparing for something, or trying to prove something. Then they heard it. A sound. Upstairs. Footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Nora immediately shut off the recorder. Everyone went still. Someone's here, Tom whispered. Jacob's eyes widened. It's her. They rushed upstairs, but found no one. The front door was swinging open. A lamp had fallen. The screen door clattered in the wind. No car. No sign of anyone. But they knew someone had been there. Jacob broke the silence first. She used to say the house was alive, that it listened. Tom rested a hand on his shoulder. You're safe now. But they all knew that wasn't entirely true. Not yet. Not even close. Back in Asheville, Nora reached out to a retired colleague, Detective Mark Salazar, who used to investigate child abductions in the region. She gave him everything. The tapes, the photos, the maps. 2 days later, he called her back. His voice was grim. The name Claire Mitchell came up once. Around 2012. A welfare check. No charges, but flag behavior. Where? Nora asked. Outside Boone, 3 counties north. She lived on a property just like the one Jacob described. Curtains sealed. No contact with neighbors. Send me the report. When Nora opened the file, she froze. A blurry photo. Low resolution. But the face, it was her. Older now, but unmistakable. The woman who had taken Jacob had been on the authorities' radar 2 years before he disappeared. And nothing had been done. Nora printed the report and drove straight to the Ellison home. Hannah opened the door, pale and exhausted. Is he okay? Nora asked. Hannah nodded. He's sleeping. Quiet, withdrawn. But I can tell. He's remembering more. You can see it in his eyes. Nora held up the file. Her name was Claire. She was already in the system. Hannah stared at it. So what do? We find her. We find out why she took him and why she gave him back. Hannah looked down. Her voice trembled. I keep wondering if I ever knew my son at all. You knew him, Nora said gently, but you didn't know who was watching. Meanwhile, Jacob's memories were returning slowly, painfully. A chipped blue mug, a whistle, a dollhouse locked behind glass. Not his, Claire's. She talked to it, he told him once at dinner, like it was alive. Tom frowned. What do you mean? She said it belonged to her daughter, but she never said her name. Did she? Did she actually have a daughter? I don't know. I never saw anyone, but sometimes I'd hear her singing lullabies through the walls. Did she ever mention us? Hannah asked. Jacob nodded slowly. She said, my mom gave me away. Hannah gasped. That's not true, she whispered. Jacob looked at her, but she made it sound so real, like you left me in the rain, like I was a mistake. Hannah broke down in tears. Tom wrapped his arms around her. Jacob turned away, and for the first time, he didn't know what to believe. The pain, the confusion, the anger rising in his chest. Jacob didn't know where to put it. Nora's investigation led her to a storage unit in Boone, Unit 43. The number meant nothing to her until Jacob mentioned dreaming of it over and over again. 43. 43. It's where the silence lives, Claire had whispered to him once in a dream. Nora got a warrant and opened the unit. Inside were dozens of boxes, each labeled with a name, a date, a number. She called Hannah and Tom. She didn't just take Jacob. Nora said over the phone. There were others. Jacob was nearby. He froze. Others? Yes, Nora confirmed. She kept files. Photos. Some from newspaper clippings, others recent. Jacob stood up, shaken. Why would she do that? I don't know, Nora admitted. But I think she was trying to build something. Build what? He asked. Nora paused. A family. Or maybe a case. A case? Maybe she believed the system failed, she said. Maybe she thought she was saving us. Jacob's voice dropped. Us. Hannah turned toward him, alarmed. Us. He didn't answer. He just walked outside again, into the yard. The wind was rising. The sky was turning gray. That night, Jacob remembered something. Something sharp. He wasn't just near the locked room. He was inside it. The light was dim. Yellow. There was a camera on a tripod. A typewriter. Stacks of journals. Claire stood nearby, speaking in that soft, cold voice. One day, she whispered, they'll understand. They'll see why I had to do it. Do what? The younger Jacob asked. Give you the truth. The real truth. Not what they fed you. Are you my mom? In every way that matters. What about my real mom? She gave up. Why? Claire didn't answer. She just hummed, and the light flickered. The next morning, Jacob asked Nora for the journals from the storage unit. They're still being reviewed, she said. I need to see them. Why? Because she said the truth is in there. Nora hesitated. Let me talk to Mark. Maybe I can get you one. She came back 2 hours later with a manila envelope. Inside were a few copied pages. Journal 7. Handwritten. Dense. Chaotic. But one passage stood out. The Ellisons lied. I have proof. They wanted him gone. They told me where to find him. Jacob's hands trembled. What does that mean? We don't know, Nora said. It could be a delusion or not. Jacob looked down. She always said people wear masks, that the ones who smile the most are hiding the darkest things. He stood up. I need to ask my mom something. That evening, after dinner, they sat on the porch, just him and Hannah. The breeze rustled the oak trees. Cicadas hummed in the distance. Did you ever meet Claire? He asked quietly. Hannah froze. What? Before I disappeared. Did you know her? No. Are you sure? He looked at her. Because she wrote that you gave me to her. That's a lie. But you knew her. No. She said you came to the house once. Silence. Tell me the truth. I am, she insisted. Then why does everything feel wrong? Because trauma lies to us, Hannah said. It scrambles memories, confuses the real and the imagined. Jacob pleaded again. Tell me the truth. She didn't respond. And in that silence, something in him cracked. The next morning, Nora came back. She handed him a flash drive. One of the recordings, she said. You should hear it. They played it on Tom's old laptop. Claire's voice again, calm, certain. She said she couldn't raise him, that her husband had left, that she was drowning. She asked me to take him, just for a while. Said no one would believe her if she changed her mind. And I knew she'd never come back. Jacob stared at the screen. She was talking about my mom. Tom looked shaken. She was... So it's true. We don't know that yet, Nora replied. Claire may have twisted things. Or maybe not. But she didn't say more, because she couldn't. That night, Jacob slipped out of the house. He walked for hours, his feet blistered, past the square, past the woods behind the high school, until he reached a rundown motel with a flickering sign that read Lodge. The rest of the letters burned out. He paid in cash, slept in his clothes, and dreamed of fire. The next morning, Nora showed up at the Ellisons' door, her jaw tight, her eyes storm dark. Tom opened it, still half asleep. He's not here, he said. We thought he was with you. "We need to talk," Nora said. She laid a folder on the table, opened it, and slid out a photo dated March 2014. It showed Hannah Ellison standing on a porch, shaking hands with Claire Mitchell. "Where did you get this?" Tom asked. "County records," Nora replied. "The house Claire lived in before Brever was owned by Lorraine Harper. She died in 2013. Guess who bought it?" "Who?" "Your wife." Tom's face went pale. "That's not possible." "It's legal. She co-owned it with Claire for 8 months, then signed over her half." Hannah stepped into the room barefoot, hair tangled, eyes red. She froze when she saw the photo. Nora's voice trembled. "You lied. You knew her." Hannah looked down, saying nothing. "You gave Jacob to her," Nora said. "Didn't you?" Tom stood, stunned. "Hannah." Her voice was dull, robotic. "I didn't know she would keep him. I thought, just for a while." "What?" Tom shouted. "I was breaking Tom," she said quietly. "You were working 14 hours a day. I had no help, no sleep. I was afraid I'd hurt him. I was afraid I already had." Tears streamed down her face. Claire was supposed to be temporary. A week, 2 at most. She'd helped other women. She said, "I needed rest, just a chance to breathe." "You let her take him?" Nora asked, heartbroken. "I was going to bring him back," Hannah whispered. "But then she left, vanished. I panicked. I filed the report because I didn't know where she went. And then it was too late." "You lied to everyone," Tom said. "I thought I was protecting him from me." Meanwhile, Jacob sat in the motel room, turning the brass tag from his backpack over in his hands. 43. He remembered now. It wasn't just a number. It was a room number in Claire's first house. In Boone. That's where the real journals were. The first ones. The ones that mattered. He took the bus north. Told no one. He found the house easily. The yard was wild. The mailbox rusted shut. But the front door? Unlocked. Inside, the air reeked of rot and paint thinner. Under the floorboards of room 43. He found them. 7 black leather journals, dated 2012 to 2014. He sat on the dusty floor, heart pounding, and began to read. The entries were obsessive, messianic, dangerous. Claire wrote about child neglect, about failures in the system, about how children were safer away from their parents. The Ellison boy is beautiful, curious, observant, but she's unraveling. She doesn't even notice him eating dust off the baseboards. He asked why Daddy doesn't come home until dark. She told him he was saving the world. He's not. She left him in the yard again today. I watched from the car. 5 hours. No one checked. Jacob's hands trembled. She was watching them, stalking them. He turned the page. The mother came to me crying. She said she couldn't sleep, the journal read. She dreamed of drowning. I told her I could help. She agreed. Weeks later, he's here now. Says he misses the green flag. I lied. Told him they sent me because they were sick, that he'd see them soon. I think I love him, but he's smarter than the others. Jacob dropped the journal. His whole body shook. She had been watching them, manipulating, waiting, and his mother had let her in. Back at the Ellison house, Nora stood in the rain. Phone pressed to her ear. "We have to find him. Now!" Tom appeared behind her. "Where would he go?" "Where it all began," she said. "Boone. That was the first house." "I'll drive." "No, I need you here, in case he comes back." "He won't." Nora stared at him. "No, he won't." Jacob stayed in Claire's old house for hours, reading, processing, mourning, not just the years he lost, but the people he thought he had. He found one last page, ripped, folded, tucked beneath a loose floorboard. It read, "One day he'll find this, and he'll hate me. But maybe he'll hate them too, because monsters don't just live in basements. Sometimes they live in kitchens. Sometimes they tuck you in." That night, he called a number he'd memorized long ago. Claire's number. It still worked. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Caleb?" He didn't respond. "Is it you?" My name is Jacob. They lied to you. I saved you. No, you stole me. I gave you peace. You gave me silence. They didn't want you. Then why do I still want them? Click. He hung up and cried until sunrise. Nora found him the next morning, sitting on the floor of the house. Journals piled beside him. I know everything now, he said. No, she said, kneeling down. You don't. What do you mean? She reached into her coat, pulled out a folded photograph. It was from his 5th birthday, but not the one in the family albums. In this one, Claire was in the background, smiling, holding a cake. She was already in your life, Nora whispered, long before the day you disappeared. Jacob's breath caught. Why? Because she believed you were hers from the start. You were targeted, Jacob, groomed. Your entire childhood was set up. He looked away. What am I supposed to do with that? Nora said nothing. There was no answer, just the wind through the broken window. That evening, Jacob returned to the Ellison house. He walked to the same door he'd once stood in front of, uncertain, lost. Now, he entered as someone who had seen too much. Tom stood in the kitchen doorway. His eyes were older, softer. He opened his arms. Come here. But Jacob didn't move. He looked past him to the hallway. Hannah stood there barefoot, frozen. She had rehearsed what she'd say. But the words collapsed as soon as she saw his face. There was no anger in his eyes, just distance, as if she wasn't his mother. But a question he hadn't yet answered. Jacob, she whispered. He blinked. You gave me away. She flinched. I thought I was protecting you. You lied. I was drowning. So you let me drown instead? I didn't know she would. You knew, he said. Maybe not everything, but enough. I've lived in regret every day since. That's not the same as pain. He looked at her. She taught me how to disappear. The room went quiet. And now, he added, I don't know how to stay. Later, Tom found him sitting on the ground where the old treehouse used to be, just a patch of weeds and broken wood. The green flag was long gone. Tom sat down beside him. You don't have to talk. Jacob didn't, at least not right away. Eventually, he said, I remember you reading to me. Tom smiled faintly. Dr. Seuss? No, that one with the shipwreck. Island of the Blue Dolphins. You liked the ending, Tom said. I liked that she chose to survive. They sat in silence. Do you hate her? Jacob asked. Some days. Do you hate yourself? Tom looked down. Every day. Jacob stared at the dirt. I think I want to forgive her, but I don't know how. Maybe don't start with forgiveness, Tom said. Maybe start with just letting yourself not. Jacob nodded. I want to feel home again. You can. No, Jacob replied. I can't. Then let's build something new. That night, Hannah knocked on the door of the room Jacob still refused to sleep in. He let her in. She sat on the edge of the bed. He stayed on the floor, back against the wall. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said. I don't even expect you to talk to me. Then why are you here? Because you're my son. You stopped being my mom the day you opened that car door. Tears streamed silently down her face. I would give anything to undo it. He didn't respond, just stared at the wall. Then finally, do you remember my plastic camera? Her eyes filled with pain. Claire said you threw it away. I didn't. It's in the hallway drawer. He got up, walked out, opened the drawer, and there it was, dusty, cracked, but still whole. He held it in his hands, turned to her. If I let you stay in my life, you don't get to be the mom who tucked me in. You have to be both, the woman who left and the one who waited. And you don't get to cry when I don't hug you. He placed the camera on the counter, then quietly added, then we'll try, and walked away. The following week, Jacob returned to the ruins of the treehouse. He brought a small green flag. It wasn't as bright as the old one, but it moved the same in the wind. He hammered it into the dirt. Tom watched from the porch. That weekend, Nora visited one last time. She handed Jacob a small box. Inside, Claire's final letter. Unsent. Jacob, I thought I was saving you. I thought the world would hurt you more than I ever could. I see now. I became what I feared. I hope someday you can build something from the pieces I left behind. Maybe even love someone without being afraid to lose them. And maybe, in that moment, you'll understand what I meant when I called you mine. Not because I owned you, but because I thought I was the only one who ever saw you. Jacob folded the letter. He walked out to the fire pit and burned it. He watched the ashes drift into the sky. He never went back to the house in Boone. He never called Claire again. But sometimes when he passed a mirror, he forced himself to look, not for her, not for his parents, but for himself. Because if he could still see the boy with the plastic camera, then maybe that boy hadn't died. Maybe he just waited. Autumn arrived quietly in Asheville, the kind that doesn't announce itself, just slips in overnight. One morning you wake up and the air is crisp. The leaves crunch underfoot. The wind hums a song you hadn't noticed before. Jacob walked the trail behind the old school where he had vanished once. He came often now, not to search for what he lost, but to acknowledge it. He kept the plastic camera in his pocket. It didn't work. That wasn't the point. He found the crooked oak where he had taken his last photo as a child. Its bark was carved with fading initials. It leaned to one side, still standing, still holding secrets. He sat beneath it, closed his eyes, listened, and for once, there were no screams, no shadows, just wind. Back at home, Tom had built a bench beneath the ruins of the treehouse. He never said why, but Jacob knew. Sometimes they sat on the bench together, Jacob and Tom. No words, no plans, just being. And for once, that was enough. Hannah was in therapy now, real therapy, 3 times a week. She never asked Jacob to forgive her again. She just showed up, quietly. She brought him tea when he couldn't sleep, left a light on in the hallway, but never asked him to use it. On his birthday, she left a small package on the kitchen table, wrapped in old newspaper. Inside, a green flag, newly sewn. Jacob didn't say anything, but he kept it in his room, and that meant more than words ever could. Detective Nora Hayes eventually stopped visiting, but she mailed him one last letter. Some mysteries don't end with handcuffs or courtroom confessions. Some end in silence or in the eyes of people who survived. But I believe this. Truth always leaves fingerprints. You just have to learn where to dust. Jacob folded that letter and kept it tucked inside his journal. Sometimes, on days when the world felt too big or too fake, he read it again. Of course the story spread. Boy missing for 11 years, found alive. There were headlines, podcasts, Reddit threads, conspiracy theories. Claire disappeared again, slipped away from every known address. Another ghost in the system. The world moved on. But Jacob didn't want to be a symbol. He didn't want to be the miracle boy or the face of survival. He just wanted to live. So he applied to community college, photography program. He didn't know what he was doing, but he knew this. He wanted to capture the things no one saw. One evening, Hannah asked gently, "Do you want to look through the old photo albums again?" He said yes. They sat together on the living room floor, flipping through pages, laughing sometimes, crying, too. Jacob paused at one picture, him in a pool, wearing a red Mickey Mouse shirt, grinning from ear to ear. That was the day before. Hannah said softly, "I look so free," he whispered. "You were?" She touched his hand, lightly. "Then let's remember that day. Together." He nodded. Later, in his new room, not the one from his childhood, but the one he chose, Jacob pinned a new photo to the wall. It wasn't of him. It was the bench, the green flag, the crooked oak, taken from below in soft evening light, with long shadows stretching behind it. Below the photo, he had written, "Where I stopped being lost." And one night, long after the house had gone quiet, after the lights were off and the world felt still, someone knocked on the front door. 3 times. Soft, familiar. Tom opened it. No one was there. Only the wind, only the memory, only the reminder that sometimes, Even when the person comes back, a part of them stays missing. Jacob sat in the kitchen, drinking tea. The steam curled upward like ghosts rising from a long sleep. Across from him, his mother, he looked at her. "Do you ever wish we could go back?" She looked at the photo on the wall. "No," she said. "I just wish we'd started seeing each other sooner." Jacob nodded. "Me too." He reached into his pocket, pulled out the old plastic camera, held it up. "Smile." She did. He clicked the shutter. No film inside. But again, that wasn't the point. Because sometimes healing doesn't look like a happy ending. Sometimes it looks like surviving long enough to find your name again, to hear someone say it without fear, to walk back through the door you once ran from, and still be brave enough to stay. Because home isn't always where you were taken from. Sometimes it's where you choose to return.